I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for coming to our meeting this evening. We did open the meeting at 6:30 with personnel issues, so we are currently in the open part of our meeting. The first thing that I would like to have is approval of our minutes from our March 11th meeting.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Any questions on those minutes? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I need approval of the agenda with no changes.
Yep, as written.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I don't believe we have anybody in the public that has submitted a request to speak. I would recognize that we did have a public comment come in that the board has received. It's not part of our agenda tonight, so it won't be part of our discussion, but note that we have received it and it will be discussed at another time. I didn't realize we were having all of these people in the background.
Are these folks that are part of our other agenda, Steve?
Okay. So moving on, the first thing is we have some reports, starting with our staff report, and we have 3 staff members here. Amy, Leah, Mel, come on up and take a seat and give us your report.
I'll start. We're reporting from the WTA this evening, and my first item is just a consideration for the board to think about the listening sessions that occur in the buildings and to see if we might do a virtual offering, but with clarifying that this wouldn't be an additional meeting, something just taped and available for staff that are not able to come in early. If that makes sense. And-
Not alive.
Yeah, like a lot, yes.
So-
Zoom.
So.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, not taped as in watching it later, but just available for them to view live, yeah.
Yeah. We did offer a virtual for many years, even last year. The first one we did last year, we had one, Katie and I, nobody tuned into
So,
us.
and we were thinking, like, to clarify that it would be at each building, offering it as an option at each building.
Like during the
So,
exact same
during the-
time.
Oh,
while
simultaneous.
we're
Yes,
there.
Not a separate
Oh, that
virtual
makes so much
offering.
more sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So like if I need to come in
Yeah,
and do
yeah.
work in my room, I could have the Zoom meeting up and
And we are
listening to
there.
it.
Yes,
Great
And
idea.
then,
Okay, I like that idea.
easier than having an entire separate session offered
Yeah.
like in the evening or something.
Yeah, because we have done that and we really did not have good
Yeah.
attendance or participation.
Yeah, that'd be great if we could consider that. And then
We
in
can
addition
talk
to
about that if we can figure out the technology. Sure.
Yeah, I can't help you there, but somebody else.
Somebody,
Amy can help.
Amy can help us there. Okay.
I can go next. So first of all, thank you for the 2-hour late start last week. That was we haven't had one of those in a really long time, and it was very nice to know that we could all get to school safely, especially considering some of the accidents and stuff that had happened the night prior with school buses and things. So that was very appreciated. And also there was a huge appreciation for the trust that you gave with the option of having staff come into school if they wanted to on Parent-Teacher Day Friday, or doing their parent-teacher conferences from home, since many of them were virtual already or in addition. So that was very nice too, because that was also not a very, well, it was supposed to be pretty bad. I don't think it was as bad as we thought, but we just appreciated that trust
option.
because I know I worked more than I was supposed to that day. It was great just to be able to do it from home, so.
And finally, we just wanted to say a big congratulations to both Mark and Ted, and thank you for continuing to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next, we have our student report, and I believe Victoria and Kendall are both here. Come up, ladies.
Okay, so this week at the high school, it's Pride Week, in order to recognize and celebrate the LGBTQ community. There are lunches going on during the week as well as a bake sale at school. Also, there's an upcoming assembly this week at the high school for prom. We're gonna have a speaker who's gonna present 2 assemblies for both students and staff. And along with prom this weekend, post-prom will be going on at the Village Center after the dance. I think it goes from like 11 to 2:30 or something in the morning. The high school drama department is presenting their new musical called Alice by Heart. Performances are on May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the small odd at the high school. And finally, student council is currently accepting donations for the River Food Pantry. They're looking for items such as cereals, granola, fruit bars, nuts, meat sticks, pretzels or chips, fruit or pudding cups, fruit roll-ups or fruit snacks, mac and cheese, or microwave popcorn. Donations will be accepted, or donations will be accepted through April 12th.
And then what I have to present, so for senior activities going on in the high school, we're having our scholarship drive this month. So April 24th, we'll be having high school seniors who have post-graduation plans that they're trying to save for, go out door to door, advocating for the drive. And then we also have our YA ceremony, recognizing youth apprentices this month, and that is also April 24th. So that's a big day for the seniors at the high school. And then students are definitely studying a lot right now for their AP tests. We're just 1 month out from those, so there's a lot of tension in the school, as you can imagine, as we're all trying to kind of cram in our last few study sessions. And then like Hummel said, we have prom this Saturday. A lot of people are excited for that. The theme's Tangled, so that'll be fun. And then yes, we have that guest speaker talking about like making safe decisions this week. I believe that's Wednesday. And then lastly, the start of April, we recognized our school's paraprofessionals. These are staff members we really appreciate all their hard work for. They do a lot, and so we recognize them this month.
Wonderful. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah. If I can highlight something that Tori said was, she talked about the youth apprenticeship program that'll be taking place. I think that's going to be at Waunakee Grove High School, I think. But we'll get you more information on that. Jack, you went to it last year. We belong to the Dane County Consortium for apprenticeship. This is their end of the year banquet where you see all the business partners and the students who are in apprenticeship across our county are getting honored and recognized. So if anybody has an interest to kind of see that, it's a pretty impressive evening, and it's fun to just see kind of all the breadth of the things that we have students across our region doing. So just let me and Rebecca know, and we can definitely get you to be signed up there, and a few of our apprenticeship. Hopefully some of our folks in the room here today will be there. So.
And that's on the 24th?
Yeah,
yes.
it's the 24th of April. I believe it's Waunakee Grove High School at 5:30.
Yep.
All right.
Yep,
Thank you.
they serve usually like a spaghetti dinner or something beforehand, or tacos. That's usually what they've had the last few years. So there's food, and then there's the program. Lasts a couple hours.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Any other questions for our speakers? Thank you, ladies. Good luck with your studying.
Thanks.
Next, if there are any board members who have attended any events or trainings in the last month that would like to share out, now's a good time. There are 2 announcements that I'd like to just take a minute to make the public aware of. One is the survey that you should have received in the mail, and if you want to do it online, if you go to the website, the end of that survey is April 23rd. If you need a second code or anything, Annie Blackburn would help you out, or if you just go to the website, you'll have a link to getting some information on that. And the second thing I'd like to just make the public aware of, as we are thinking about the end of legacy in our buildings, specifically the whole heritage complex, which will be taken down this summer as we prepare to build our new middle school. There's an open house kind of last look for the public on April 22nd from 6 o'clock to 7:30. And so if there's anybody in the public who has spent any amount of time there teaching or as a student, please know that there is an opportunity to walk through and make memories or think about your memories. So, thank you. Okay, we have National Teacher Appreciation Week coming up, May 6th through 10th. Mark and Annie Blackburn have put together a great tribute for both our staff. I guess at this point, I would just like to seek any feedback from board members on that publication. Mark, I want to thank you, and Annie for doing that. It was quite well done. Anybody have any questions or concerns, comments?
Obviously, we want to include everyone. I thought it was more Teachers Appreciation Week, but we have, I think that second paragraph, we included like everyone.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that minimizes for the teachers, you know, if it. To be
So
that.
we've sort of approached it this way
Yeah.
over the past few years, and it's really hard to, I think when you're looking at Teacher Appreciation Week, there's more than just teaching staff that are teaching kids.
Yeah.
You've got parents who are doing it. You know, the toddler people, you know, I mean, they are teaching kids by how they interact with them. So the crossing guards, I mean, you know, they all affect kids and teach them something. And so I think it's just, my perspective was a broader definition of teachers without taking anything away from them, I thought. I mean, that's my logic behind it.
And I guess I agree. You know, I think if you asked a kid, they probably couldn't differentiate the tiers of who the teachers are in the building. You know, they have their kind of home teacher, but I think there's a sense of learning from all those people. Which brings us up to our spring election update. I believe this morning or yesterday morning. This morning. Canvas this morning.
This morning.
So the official votes are in, and I would like to announce that Ted and Mark have succeeded in winning those elections. But I would like to thank Ben for throwing his name in the hat. It's always great to have an opposition or to have other people in the race. So thank you. And congratulations.
A summary of the canvas that Judy and Rebecca were part of is in your packet in front of you this evening.
With the official numbers.
Yep.
Okay, next is a consideration of a mental health awareness flag resolution put forth by Dawn. And I don't know if you want to go over some of your...
Why don't you let me take at least kind of give you the history of where we've been with flags and resolutions, and then I can turn it over to Dawn for her to present what she's requesting of the board's consideration tonight. So as we go back into our minutes, in April of 2022, we had a board resolution that came in front of us with regards to flying the mental health flag for May of 2022. At that point, the board did vote on a 5-2 vote to approve the resolution and to fly the mental health flag for May of 2022 only. There was also a separate vote that took place subsequently that stated that the board was going to really take a pause from any further resolutions of flying any additional flags until the Supreme Court case in that Supreme Court case is the Shurtleff versus City of Boston case. So you wanted to hold off until there was more definition as far as what that case actually meant. That case has been settled, and I think as we've talked about in this forum previously, particularly when we were looking at policies around which flags we fly and some of those different aspects, we chose not to develop a more robust policy on flags, And I think utilizing that as a reason that if there is something that as a governmental body, as an organization that you wanted to articulate, there are means for you to do so outside of policy. And that's really how they've been dealt with as we fly the other flags that we have on different months throughout the year. And the Shirtler versus City of Boston case really stems around the idea of flag flying. It was the City of Boston had a municipal building where they had multiple flagpoles, and one of them was designated for commemorative flags. And individuals were allowed to fly flags on that pole during different events or per request to do so. And then there was a point where the city decided that there was one they wanted to say no to. So that's what the case was about. And what it was really coming down to was that flagpole, it's now a method of speech. So whose speech is it? Is it individual speeches, otherwise groups within a community or within an organization that are providing their individual speech? Or is it government speech? Is it the speech of a governmental body saying this is important to us and that's why we are putting that forth? There's a lot of different entanglements to that case, but that's generally what that's articulated. I did review the case with our legal counsel prior to tonight. And one of the things that Kirk Strang and I discussed was kind of that the speech being a piece that's tied to a resolution, tied to things that are happening within our school district. If those are things that you feel are important and you are adopting them per a resolution, he would argue that falls towards the end of government speech. So I think tonight what you have in front of you is you have a resolution that Dawn put together. Her desire is to resurrect the mental health flag for May and to have that moving forward into subsequent years. And I think the question that you have to then think about is I think the resolution could be articulated that it's government speech, but I think then it's a matter of is that a forum in which you want to articulate that speech. So I think that's really the question in front of you this evening as a board and as board members is how do you want to articulate that? And if you are approving that, I mean, obviously then we fly the flag, and I feel fairly comfortable with kind of that being grounded as a government speech entity. But even if it's a piece that you feel is important, but flying the flag is not something that you feel is where we should be articulating that is obviously within your realm as well. But I wanted to kind of review the legalities of it so you at least knew what those parameters were before you made any decisions on it. So I think, Joan, allowing Dawn to kind of articulate where she's at with this and what her request is of the board tonight.
Yeah. So, Dawn, do you want to share some background or why you're bringing this forward?
Sure, and I have no intention of reading this verbatim, so hopefully you all have a chance to look at it. But I did want to tie this resolution very firmly to priorities that we have in the district in terms of how to recognize the needs of the students within our schools and how we are doing that. And this is one more way to recognize students who can be marginalized and an issue that is affecting a great number of our students, and then tie it to individual statements in terms of how our district is addressing that. So it is one more very public way to acknowledge the fact that this is a priority to our district and to our students, and that there are steps being taken to provide students with what they need to be successful.
So,
I think I'll continue to have my stand. I don't believe that the flagpole should be flying anything other than the state flag along with the country's flag. It in no way diminishes what I feel is important in terms of this issue or any of the other issues. It's just, it should not be on a flagpole, and the whole thought of whether it's government speech or individual speech. I think in one of the, however you want to term it, when you look at the case that was held, some of the supporting statements from the comments about the case is that you have to be pretty wary of it, because you could, even though you're going to term this as government speech, there could be ill intention of bringing that to a board and then potentially passing stuff that really, however it was worded in there, is obviously way more articulate.
Right.
But I would still be against using the flagpole as a way of recognizing and continue to feel that. So I would not be in support of it.
Would it make a difference if we had a separate flagpole like Boston did? So that the state and federal flag are one pole, and this would be a segregated pole for it? Would that make a difference in your thinking?
It may, but personally, no. I'm going to keep the idea of the flags. It's whatever we as a governmental body is going to put out for it. I think it's in recognition of our country and our state. If it went so far as to recognize a school, we had a school flag, I think those are the lines that you could see are very definite. But everything else, whether we want to be inclusive of some thoughts, in a lot of ways it'll cause division in the end. Not for everyone, but it'll be a place of division for a lot of people. And so the intention is to be inclusive, and remember that it might cause the opposite effect, and we can't control that. But we can control the other 2 or 3 things that I was saying. That's an absolute. That's just the way I feel on it.
Any other?
Yeah, I'm in the same camp, because I think what you're doing here is setting precedents, and, even if it's government or individual speech, we could get sideways when somebody says, hey, why don't you like mine and you like theirs? And I think the more we do this, the less opportunity we have to say no. Whether it's government or individual speech, whatever. And I think, we've done things to, I think support our mental health in the buildings. I think we've been visible in that. So I don't see, just flying a flag saying, hey, this shows our ultimate support. We are for our kids. We are, we've got support systems within our buildings, which I think is paramount to saying, hey, we support this. So I don't see where flying flags, gets people excited or moves the needle in what we want to do.
I appreciate Don putting this together. Thanks for putting it together, Don. I think our school does a lot of things to recognize and to address mental health and to make certain that our students are aware. I think that, as Randy articulated, this is one way to articulate where we stand, but there are other ways that we can do it as well. And I think just to avoid from overcomplicating things for various reasons, I think it makes sense to articulate our thoughts on this resolution in other ways other than flying a flag.
Would it be agreeable to the board if, regardless of whether the board votes to support this recommendation, to have an actual statement encompassing what's in the resolution on the same page where we have a couple other public statements on our website? Would that be something?
I think what you're talking, just to kind of clarify what you're saying is, I believe under we have statements in a couple different places. We have one on our mission and visions page.
Right.
We also have any of the resolutions that we've passed in previous board meetings are under our policy page.
Right. And that's kind of what I was thinking. But we have a number of resolutions we've passed.
Yeah.
And doesn't our mission and vision statement, can't we put something there to, show our support for mental health? You could put, a line item there, because that's really the way we operate, right? And so you could put, a line there as opposed to all these different resolutions where they kind of get lost, I think, after a while. I think, if they're really strong on this, then it should be in the vision statement where this is how we operate.
Yeah, you have several options. I mean, Dawn is requesting right now, and that's the piece that'll be on your table to vote on, is a resolution that has part of that articulating the flying of the flag in May. You also have, and I agree with you, Jack, I think it is encompassed at probably a broad level within kind of our vision statements. You also, and this board hasn't done a lot with them. I'm trying to think back over time if we've ever had, because sometimes boards will put forth a resolution that just state their support of a concept. I mean, this one has one that's tied to a flag, but you can have one that articulates your support of mental health, for example, or any other topic. And those could be something, I think, when I'm thinking about a way that you post it, that would kind of show your support for something in writing, kind of blending kind of what you and Jack are saying, that would be a way you could also do that.
And I think even when this discussion came up last year, or a couple years ago when it was on there, in terms of recognizing it, it's not a flagpole, we have some sort of, it's a kiosk or something at this, where that type of information could be displayed, information. It was interesting, I think you were at the listening session, Joanna was over at the high school, and it was, I don't know which month it was, but there was one of the commemorative flags flying, and honestly, the kids didn't know what it was for.
You're right.
So in a lot of ways, the flag's up there, and
Right.
there's no knowledge as to what it's about anyway. So maybe to bring awareness to it in a different way, it's a good thought, So I think it's a great idea. I definitely don't have any issues with what it is trying to bring about.
And I think, from the kiosk standpoint, if you had some kiosks, and we've got a great technology shop here now, we could probably make them, right? But, then you could put some history there, you could put some narrative there, give more information than just, flying the flag. And I agree with you. We went to one of the kids' listening sessions and said, hey, what flag is flying out there? And they said, didn't know.
Yeah.
So it was, it's hard, for me to get my arms around something that says, hey, this is, great, and Dawn, thanks for putting this together. But at the end of the day, is it really accomplishing what you really want to accomplish?
Yeah, I think that the question is definitely the piece Dawn put in front. I just want to kind of go back to kind of the kiosk piece and things we've talked about here before. We have to be very careful we don't create a place where it's just anybody can put anything up, because that creates an open forum where then there is no ability to moderate that. So that's part of where I think the process where it comes through with the resolution as part of the board and being very specific. And obviously you have a decision to make as kind of if that's the way you want to articulate that speech, but that's controlled versus having something that's more of an open forum, which I would be very cautious about wanting to create.
Well, we're really looking at the proposal here. We're not trying to find alternatives to
Right.
it.
We are really
So I think we want to stick with, are we going to
fly this flag.
fly the flag or no?
Yeah.
I would say no.
So, can we just bring it to a vote? Are you ready?
Make the motion to reject this proposal? Would that be the motion?
Just
No,
so you
then
know
we'd
what
have
you're
to
voting
be-
for. So if you,
Just so you know.
Double
if your motion is to reject it, a yes vote
Rejects
means you're saying no to it.
Right. Because you're making a motion to not
Reject
fly
it.
Right.
to not fly the flag.
I second that.
1 second. So we do have a motion on the table to not fly the flag. So if you agree to that, there would be no flag, there would be no addition to the flags that we are currently flying. Can we do it by roll call, just so that we know?
We can, I'm going to vote no. I just have a hard time saying no to something like this, of this value, when we've said yes to a couple other things that have important value, that this is maybe equal to. And I think that maybe touches why you're opposed to it, but it's, I can't say, I can't not support this when we support the others. And if we're not going to support this, you know,
But that's another step.
but that's not what's
something
on.
else.
So I will vote
Okay.
no.
Ted?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Judy?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
I'm going to vote no. Dawn?
No,
No. So it is a 4-3 vote, so we will not
Okay.
fly that flag. Thank you, Dawn.
So before going forward, is there room to discuss an alternative board option? Because May's coming up.
I don't think that's the board's job.
What would you be proposing? That'll answer Judy's question. Are you,
The board has made numerous public statements in support of different issues, different causes. And so I guess that's what would the board support some sort of statement in support of the mental health month, emphasizing the importance to our student body and our commitment to providing the best mental health care we can, something to that effect.
I'd like to say that the board did by bringing in the services we have from the outside to have it available. I think the actions the board has taken has been very supportive of mental health to the students and also in increasing the amount of staffing we have in that area. And I think that's where the lane that the board should stay in and not make various statements. I just think our job is here.
And I would echo that. I think, the board has done, things, I think actions are stronger than words. And I think these actions that we've done are pretty dynamic.
All right. Thank
Well
you.
stated.
Moving on to committee reports, starting with curriculum committee.
All right, we have our K-4 math program that's going to be presented, I believe.
I think Amy stepped,
She just stepped up.
she just stepped out. I'll give you a little bit,
Oh.
as she's coming up, I'll just give you a treat.
A grand entry.
Yeah, there you go. That's one way to enter it, thank you. Yeah.
So, thank you, Amy, I'll let you go ahead with this.
Yeah. Let me just give you a little bit of a preamble. This is a little bit different than what we've normally done with kind of adoptions, but this is a very large body of work that Amy's led with our K-4 staff around our math curriculum. Next month, you will see the textbook adoptions coming in May. One of the things that we are asking for tonight after Amy's presentation is to approve this ahead of time because there's some additional work that Amy needs to do in order to get this in line for the fall. So we're kind of pulling this one out, one as an information item for you so that you have the background on what's going on with K-4 math curriculum, and then two, asking for your support so we can continue moving forward with the planning. So with that, Amy, it's all yours.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. That's exactly it. So normally you would get a whole list of textbook adoptions in May, but I wanted to pull this one out and get your approval so that I can start the planning with it. So this is for our K-4 math materials. So as you might know, we're currently using Everyday Math 4th edition. There are no plans for an updated edition, and it really is not meeting our needs longer. So we have been engaged in a pretty lengthy textbook review process. We started it actually before the pandemic, and then we paused it a little bit and then picked it up. Last year, we did a pretty extensive review with a 16-member work group working with a CISA consultant. And we really reviewed a whole bunch of resources, kind of what's current and looking at shifts in our standards. And at the end of that year, the work group determined 2 materials to pilot. So that's what we've been doing this year. We have piloted Eureka Math Squared and then Illustrative Mathematics that are both very highly reviewed, very well aligned with the standards. The teachers really liked both of them, honestly. And at our last meeting of this spring, we decided on illustrative mathematics. We actually reached consensus with that group of 26 teachers there who piloted it. So we're really excited to start our planning for the adoption for next year. Here's just a little bit about the resource that we're going to be using. It is a rigorous problem-based curricula, and it is fully aligned to the standards, which is really nice because currently the teachers are having to do a lot of supplementing to make sure that they fit all of those standards into their math block. So I have just a few slides from the publisher just to give you kind of an overview of the approach. So this is really designed to encourage discussion, peer discourse, perseverance, and also the enjoyment of mathematics. Students spend a lot of time solving problems, talking about math, and really doing mathematics. We really liked the intentional design of this program and how it builds from year to year. And again, was really well aligned to the standards. And then finally, it does really encourage that sense of community. The students doing mathematics together as a community, some real world applications, and also representation so that they can see themselves in the materials and the math. Illustrative Mathematics is a nonprofit, and so it's actually an open educational resource. So it is widely available. Schools can look at different publishers for printed or digital materials to help with their implementation. So we have selected Imagine Learning as the platform for our resources. And here's a little bit about why we chose that. We feel like it's really colorful and engaging for students. There's also a lot of embedded teacher supports, which is really important for an elementary teacher who teaches so many core subjects, because there are lesson videos, professional development right in the manual. There are also some really nice supports for families, some videos for families so they can understand the math, and also some nice digital resources for kids too. Kind of relates also to our 5-8 colleagues. So they are finishing their last year with Go Math next year. That's the 7th year. And so they're engaging in a work group right now to evaluate resources. And they have chosen 2 different publishers for illustrative math. So it's really nice because regardless of which platform they choose, we'll have kind of that K-8 consistency. So that's something that we're really excited about.
So when you look at this, Everyday Math had workbooks that we bought every year, correct? Does this have that same type of ongoing?
It does.
Amy, what were some of the things that teachers liked about it when they kind of used it with their kids, and what were some of the experiences you had, if you could just kind of give a bit of an overview of what kind of feedback you got when you had everybody who came together at the end around it. I know you worked really hard too, and you had 2 really great programs that you looked at. But what was kind of the pieces that, as you had those dialogues with staff, that brought it forward that this was their choice?
Well, we have been learning a lot about the new standards that were revised in 2021 and the shifts and some of those changes. And we really felt like this met all of those, not only for content, but also for those math practices. And so it just seemed like it was something that didn't require a lot of supplementing as they were used to.
Right.
So that, I think, was one of the main things that they liked about it.
Again, you may have already said it, but I think at our curriculum meeting, I think the teachers talked about how thrilled they were with the student engagement during the trial, during the pilot, that they thought this approach had more kids engaged to the activities than maybe the everyday math has done.
Yeah, definitely high level of engagement.
How does this program get kids more involved or engaged?
So some of it is, kind of the lesson structure. And so oftentimes it will start with a question that gets students talking and doing math right away. And so that was one of the main reasons. Also just, the opportunities to talk with their fellow students, not just kind of looking on their own.
I would like to add, Amy, I liked the fact that individual teachers taught from both of the pilots. You didn't have a group that did this group or this lesson, and then you had a whole, and then they would just, you had a teacher teach a chapter or a lesson, or I don't know what the duration was. They said it was somewhere between 3 to 5 weeks. They taught from this series, and then the same teacher taught from the other series. And I feel that's a real testimony to the choice, because you have the same person who experienced both curriculums. So I appreciate how you did the pilot this time.
So we're needing a motion. So
Yes, we do need a motion.
motion to approve illustrative.
Any other questions that anybody has? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you, Amy.
Okay, well, Amy's not done.
Well, Amy's not done.
Part 2, Amy's going to share an update of where the district is, all the hard work that has been going into responding to Act 20, where we're going. So thank you, Amy.
Yes, so I gave a full report to the curriculum committee, and they asked that I bring kind of a high-level overview to the full board. So I'll give you just an overview on a few of the aspects of Act 20, and again, feel free to ask questions throughout. So Act 20 is the early literacy legislation that was approved last summer. And I'm going to talk about 3 major components of it. So the professional development and the training, the assessment, and then curriculum and instruction. So here's a little bit about what the legislation says about the training requirements. So there are a couple of different requirements. One is for teachers. So by July 1st of 2025, all of our K through 3 teachers, and that includes reading teachers, special ed teachers, our bilingual teachers, need to complete a training program from a list that's in the legislation. And then administrators at our elementary schools also need to complete a special leadership training. So we've been really focusing on that this year, and actually by August of this year, all of our K-4 teachers will have completed the training. Because our elementary schools are K-4, even though the legislation only requires K-3, we did include our 4th grade colleagues too. We chose the keys to beginning reading training, and that's been going really well. And then our reading interventionists had already started some training before Act 20, and so they're finishing that up this year. They have a 2-year training. And And we are having all of our K-8 interventionists actually complete that. And then all of our K-6 principals, even though it would only be required for our K-4, our intermediate friends are joining us along the way. So we're completing the letters for administrators, and we'll be finished with that this summer. And then the K-4 teachers also are going to do the teacher training, just so they're aware of what the teachers have been doing. So now we're starting our hiring season, so any new hires, that's part of our process, is finding out if they've had the training in their pre-service or in their previous district. And if not, we'll make sure that we get them the time and materials to do that training. We're keeping track of our documentation through PowerSchool for HR.
Do you find a lot of them do have it, or they mostly don't? The ones that you're hiring?
Since it's not required until next August.
None of them have.
So that's.
Would that be a virtual thing, or is it a class, is it
It's self-paced.
self-paced, okay?
So we are in really good shape for the professional development training portion of Act 20. So I'll talk a little bit about the assessment. There are some assessment changes for Act 20. So there's a reading readiness screener and then a diagnostic assessment. So there'll be a single screener for 4K through 3rd grade, starting in 24-25. And districts will not be able to choose their own. So right now, we have the freedom to do that when we use our early literacy. But going forward, we'll receive one from the state that all districts will use. That will be administered to 4K students twice a year, and then kindergarten through 3rd grade 3 times a year. And then there's a follow-up to the screener, so any child that scores below the 25th percentile will be given a diagnostic assessment. There will be a menu of choices for the diagnostic assessment from DPI. We'll be able to choose from that list. So how are we meeting the assessment requirements? We are still waiting for information from this, from DPI. So they are working to procure the screener, but we have heard that the earliest date is July 1. So that was pretty challenging for us to get ready to start for the beginning of the year. So people have heard that, and so there actually was kind of a legislative amendment recently that the governor just signed that says that that will be delayed until 2nd semester. So normally it will be required fall, winter, spring. It won't be required until winter next year. That does leave us in kind of a tricky position though for what we will do for the fall. So I'm really hoping we can find out what the screener is as soon as possible so that we could hopefully give that in the fall. Otherwise we'll have to try to do what we can with our current assessment.
Question, is this going to be an online, when do we get the results back? You're doing twice a year and in some of these cases 3 times a year, right? Is it relatively quick we get these results back because you've got 10 days?
Right.
Between the
time. Yes, I mean, again, we don't know what the screener will be, but like I said, we use the STAR early literacy, we get the results immediately. So I assume it would be something like that, but we
Okay.
can't.
Thank you.
Yep. So for assessment, we're kind of in a wait and see. Hopefully, we get some more information soon on that. Next, I'll give you a little overview on curriculum and instruction. So here are the requirements in the legislation. So all school districts need to provide science-based early literacy instruction in both the universal and also intervention settings. But districts can use any curriculum they choose as long as it complies with the law. So here's the definition that's in the law. The instruction needs to be systematic, so have kind of a scope and sequence, and then also explicit, so kind of clearly instructed by the teacher. And it consists of these 9 components there. So that's the definition that's in the legislation. So here is how we are using our resources to address those 9 areas. So you can see the areas on the left, and then which of our materials meets the criteria. So the first one is Hegarty. That's a phonemic awareness material. It is used in our 4K and K universally. We do use it in other grades as an intervention. And this is very well aligned to the science of reading. There's some good research supporting it, so we feel confident that this meets the requirement for phonemic awareness. Wilson Foundations is our phonics program. We implemented this and also Hegarty before the legislation. We were already planning to adjust our curriculum. So this is our second year of K through 2 and our first year of 3rd grade. And so this is also a program that definitely meets the science-based early reading instruction. It is based on Orton Gillingham, and it's one of the programs that has been approved by many other states. Wisconsin, when they were looking at their materials, they looked at kind of core materials that met all 9 of those components rather than just individual components. But you can see many states have approved this, and we feel really confident that this meets the criteria. We also use resources from the Collaborative Classroom. Making Meaning is the program that we use for our comprehension and vocabulary instruction in grades K through 4. And then Being a Writer is our writing program for K through 6. Those also are ones that would be approved by DPI, and we definitely need to meet the criteria. And then lastly, we have the computer adaptive practice software that students use, and that's Lexia Core 5. That is definitely based on the structured literacy model and would also meet the criteria for science-based early literacy instruction. And lastly, we do a lot of differentiated small groups or individualized instruction. Teachers often will meet one-on-one or with a small group, and that's another way that they can do another small group phonics lesson or do a guided reading lesson or a literature circle or book club. Definitely customizing the needs to whatever the students need. So that's another core part of our model. So with all of those materials and approaches, we feel confident that we are meeting all of those 9 components for science-based early literacy. So we're ahead of the game in professional development. We're waiting on assessment, and we're in really great shape for curriculum and instruction. And then I will be providing updates as soon as I can, as they are available to the curriculum and then to the full board if they would decide.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Any questions that I can answer for anyone on that?
Just to articulate, Amy's done a great job. You saw the work she did with the math pilot. That was a lot of work and really pulling together a great team of staff. And then the Act 20 piece, I feel like when I see what's going on across the state and the conversations that are going on, and I realize this is also part of your initiative. You want to keep our other curricular work going forward. You've done a nice job really pulling this together and leading us through the Act 20 legislation, which hasn't been easy because, as you see, there's not decisions that are being made necessarily in the timeliness that we'd like them to be. So, thank you.
I'd like to add to that as chair of the curriculum committee. It's been my privilege to watch the leadership, the vision that you put into this, the hard work, but also the elementary staff. We're looking at, there are 2 core curriculums. Our academicals are focused on math and language arts, and this is their curriculum, and we're looking at a seismic shift and the work that they have put in and they're going to continue to put in. As a board member, I'm really appreciative of what they've done for our students, and so thank you for the great job.
How is it being received by the teachers? Like, what's the general
Yeah,
tone?
it's been really positively received. The math, I think people were really ready for a change, and as I said, it had to be paused, during the pandemic. So I think people are really excited about the direction of going there. And people have been really positive about the keys training that they've been doing. We picked a training that is really practical, so there are a lot of activities and lesson ideas in that. And so I think that's one reason that people are supportive of that too.
How and when did they get this training?
So we have been using some of our professional development days. We also have the May 20th day coming up. So we had the bulk of it during that time. But then any other time needed, we are offering pay or points.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Next is the HR committee report.
So I guess our, kind of the action that we're seeking is to approve our benefits plan for this upcoming school year. We offer a full range of benefits, but there's only two things that are highlighted in this particular agenda, which is, we could open the first one, Rebecca, is related to a change in our health insurance. Just to take us back a little bit historically, we were very fortunate to have a 5-year rate hold with Dean and SSM as partners. That 5-year rate hold ended a year ago, and so then we've kind of, since then, we have basically become like their whole book of business, which is a year-to-year review. And so what they offered us this year for continued partnership was an increase in cost, total cost for keeping our plan offering as is 8.4%. What Steve and Allie had worked on budgetarily on the early drafts of the budget and have continued to fine tune was finding a way to increase district contributions by 5%, which means then that employees are going to make up that final 3.4%. And so what this plan would detail would be, as I mentioned, our structure remaining the same, offering 3 types of plans, each of them costing the district the same amount of money, but depending which choice an employee would make, whether they would go to the traditional HMO structure, they would go to the high deductible plan with an HSA, or whether they would go into the point of service plan, their choice, they would make up the difference in cost. But each of the 3 options is the same in terms of district cost. And so this reflects that those changes. It is something that we've worked on this school year with the insurance committee. We held, certainly there's 2 different ways to absorb an increase in cost. One is you change the structure of your plan. Secondly, you pay more. And so in terms of the insurance, feedback we got from the insurance committee, we're still, I guess, becoming comfortable and as a system learning how to work with the plan changes that we put in last year. And so they thought it would be best for us to pursue a change in cost with the idea that this again is a pre-tax contribution by the employee. So there is a tax benefit for you'd rather make more money, but if you have to pay more, you'd rather pay more before you pay taxes than afterwards, which is what we've structured here. I don't know, Steve, if you have anything you'd want to add. Mark?
All right, I know it's, 2 questions. So how long have we been with Dean?
It'll be you know, actually, I'm gonna flip this to Steve because I need his help, because it was before I was paying close attention. I mean, we were initially a choice between Dean and UW, and then we transitioned fully to Dean, like 12, 14 years old.
Before I retired.
A long time.
Sure, yeah.
You didn't go to market, but do you have a sense of how this compares to the market? Are we in a comfortable place
Yeah,
comparatively?
that's a great question, and that's certainly something that we continue to have conversation with. We're fortunate that we work as a district with USI as a benefits advisor who works across the state, and certainly has a major footprint in schools across the state and in our region of the state as well. And we're able to also keep an eye on what is happening to other districts. And I guess I would summarize it to say that this is not unique to us. It's not unique to Dean. In fact, Dean's reaction to the changes in the medical market, medical inflation, staffing, all the things that we're all experiencing too, is actually typically has been more competitive than courts and UW, who's been really very aggressively increasing the rates that they're charging. And then the other option really we have in our area is group health cooperative, which isn't necessarily a very viable opportunity because they don't have a provider in our footprint. You know, and half of our staff live in our district, and then scattered around that. So it would be challenging to go to anywhere else but UW or courts, and they're not really very competitive at this time.
Thank you.
What do our employees pay now? We're asking them to pay 3+% more. What is their, what does this take them up to?
What it would take them to, if you look at the.
If I could see that, I could.
I apologize, Jack. So if we're right below the yellow line is what we're looking at. So the employee contributions. So the first plan we would have on our left would be the traditional HMO, and that would mean oh gosh, now I'm going to show my eyes as well. Is that 686? Thank you. Then if we're into the high deductible plan, which is the second, that's 515.44, and then again, what we have then is the cost of the point of service as well, which is the third column. And then if that, how that compares to what we're doing right now.
If you go
down,
Yeah, if you go down on the bottom, it'll tell you what the employee contributions are on the bottom there, Jack. So right now, we're at like 89 and it's gonna move to 118. Those are monthly. Isn't that right?
Yeah, so it'd be single plan, family plan.
So at the insurance committee, and I know Brian kind of said it, it came from staff that said, we don't want to change the benefits again. Our staff will better accept this than another change in the benefits that we had a drastic change last year.
Yeah, and what we really, we have found is that we weren't the only one. I mean, this is, other districts are moving with us in terms of increasing a copay cost, increasing deductible costs.
Mm-hmm.
But we're probably a little bit, I guess if we adjust it again, we would risk being a real outlier in terms of offering less of a family or insurance benefit than we would want compared to our peer districts.
Is our wellness, I know when we went after that 5-year, the wellness facility helped us, right?
Yeah.
Is that still helping us, or?
It is. And actually, talked about that particular topic with more detail at our March HR committee meeting, and one of the slides that I had shared there, it actually shows the medical expenses that we are avoiding by having the usage of the clinic. And that's something we're tracking monthly, and it's a 12-month total. It is helping, and I would also say, right now, our medical loss ratio, which is how much the insurance company is paying for our claims versus what we're paying them, is not we're in a very unfavorable position. We're well over 100%. So it means they're, in essence, paying more out than they're collecting from us. Even despite that, they were able to look to what we do with our employees now in terms of offering an employee clinic. A lot of the steps that we're taking now to promote wellness of all of our employees, and there was recognition of that work and that partnership, and they gave us a rate cap. The rate cap of 8.4%. If we had not probably had that strong partnership, had not been working with them in the clinic, I would not guess that we'd have come close to that in a renewal rate.
Are we still the only one that's got the wellness clinic, or are they starting to pop up throughout Dane County?
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So we got some other districts that have started to do that in our area. Middleton just opened their clinic January of this year. And Sun Prairie is, I think, in their second year of their clinic, second or third year of their clinic. And in our area, those are the Dane County. If you go a little bit further south, a number of districts partnering in the Rock County area on a joint clinic. And then if you get up into the Fox Valley, that's kind of where it originated, the concept originated for schools.
Right. Thank you.
So do you want to do the next item, or should we, if we're ready to vote on this, do you want to do them separate?
I think it would make sense to do them separate, or.
Sure. So if you're in agreement
Motion to approve the insurance proposal.
Second.
Any other questions for Brian or the group? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, so then there's one other offering.
Yeah, and so this would be a new, this is a proposed new offering that we would like to add to our benefits, which is called a family reimbursement account. Again, it's an emerging trend in kind of the public employer sense, but it's not necessarily new in the insurance world. I guess I would summarize it to say, this is a way that you can incentivize your employees to take, if they have another option for a health insurance plan, to take that other option. And then the benefit to them is that this would provide some financial support for any out-of-pocket costs they would experience on that plan. The benefit to us as an employer is that we have a finite amount of money that we would pay to that person, their out-of-pocket costs, but any medical expenses that they would have would go on to someone else's health plan, which ultimately then would affect their medical loss ratio, and they would be the insurers that would be helping that employer or employee pay for these things. And so this concept works in the way that you must move down in terms of what you're selecting. And so if we consider the most expensive option that an employee can take with us to be a family plan, if they can move down from a family to a single, in other words, their family would go on to a spouse's plan, or they can, if they're on a single plan now, and they can go on to a different plan, either that could be with like a parent, if they're under age 26, or if they were to get married, they could go on to a spouse at that time, then they would be eligible to join into this program. And then, as I mentioned, what we would do is we would have an opportunity called a family reimbursement account. They can submit their out-of-pocket medical expenses, receipts from that other plan, and then get reimbursed. And so this would become an option for folks. It would be available to anyone that's currently enrolled in our health insurance or a new hire that would have the choice to enroll. If someone is not in our insurance right now, they would not be eligible to tap into this because they had made that choice prior. If they come onto our insurance, they eventually could go to this, but they can't go from no insurance to this unless they're a new hire.
So is this in addition to the other program we had, or do we still have that?
Correct. So you're referring to the alternative benefit plan, I believe,
Right.
which would be also known as cash in lieu. Right now, this would be an additional option to cash in lieu, but cash in lieu is only available to 2 of our employee groups. That's historical and it was related to negotiated benefits that we
Okay.
can maintain. That's teachers and custodial maintenance groups can choose to go cash in lieu. All the other 4 employee groups, administrators, administrative support, teachers, and classified staff, have not ever been able to use that, but they could do this. Just as custodians or teachers could do this instead of cash in lieu.
Right, okay.
It just depends on, there's really, it's a financial analysis.
Right.
What is gonna be best for you and your family? And we would work closely with folks to help them understand that.
So do they still have the birthday rule, from the insurance standpoint where, you've got spouses that work at different places and, the birthday, depending upon how the plan is set up, if
Yeah, and so I think if we refer, can someone choose to join another plan? Yes. And so every plan, every year has something called open enrollment. That's a designated time where you let all of your employees choose to come in or you choose to leave. And that's established, it usually kind of is close to when your plan year starts. Ours, for example, our plan year is a July 1 plan to June 30th. We do our open enrollment in May. The other most typical time for that is January 1st. So you might see those open enrollment periods in December or late November. The other thing that I'm wondering, when you say birthday, there is also, as part of the Affordable Care Act, children can be on their parents' plan until age 26,
Right.
until the month they turn 26.
So would they go to one plan or the other, depending upon the spouse's birthday?
So, no, it depends on their birthday. And so what that's called a qualifying event. And so once you get to 26 and you can no longer be on your parents' plan, that's a qualifying event, which means you've lost coverage, which means that you now have an option to go on to whatever plans you could potentially go into. And it's similar to other things that are qualifying events, would be if you lose your job, you get divorced. Trying to think what another one might be.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, so those are,
So is this, so an employee wants to go on this, is this a payment of $50 per month?
yeah, so there's really kind of two
So then are
benefits.
they on our insurance plan, or they've gone over to somebody else's insurance
Yeah.
plan and they're paying?
We give them those are a little bit of a payroll sweetener, if you would, like a little bit of additional payroll that we're giving them to incentivize them to make that choice. So if they are single, to waive their 50 all the way up to, if they're going, whole family leaves the plan, it'd be up to 150. But again, it's a controlled finite cost, 150 times 12, 6,000, right? No, a little less than that. It would, and again, that would be a finite cost, but less than what we would pay to insure them. And certainly then we don't have any exposure to their medical claims.
So that money goes in monthly, it's listed in their account, but is it actually a pool so that when you go over, even if you don't have enough in your account, you get access to cover your out-of-pocket up to a certain
So it's actually not even that. So this money in the purple box, a payroll payment, is just cash to them.
Direct
So-
cash?
Yeah, it's cash.
Okay.
What they have an opportunity to tap into is the family reimbursement account,
Yeah.
which is a district fund that, we would cover the cost of, which is a to-be-determined amount of money that we would have to pay. We won't know what this truly costs us in total until we would get through a year, and then we would have, because we would need to know how much someone is going to have in claims out of pocket to know what the cost is. What we can say is that if someone goes this route, we know that we won't be responsible to cover, approximately, well, last year it was $1,670.58 a month. We know we would not have to pay a premium for them, but we just don't know how much we would, I don't know if the right word is clear, how much we would clear underneath what we would have expended upon them until the end of the year.
One of the pieces I think is really important as we look at this is I think it's imperative that the district puts a program like this in place because other employers are going to do the same thing. And then you're on the recipient side of that where now we're receiving people who normally maybe wouldn't be taking our plan would be taking ours. And there'd be an employer incentive on from another side. So I think there's a piece that this is a bit of being competitive in the market and making sure that we have programs in place for our employees that also then benefit us as an organization to make sure that we're putting forth the right types of products that we are competitive in that space.
So essentially, we fund the out-of-pocket with what we would have paid for an insurance premium, and we guarantee that whatever our costs are, they're not going to exceed, that's the cap, what we put in. So you can't go deficit spending on it. Okay.
So the out-of-pocket, and I should
The
know,
reimbursement.
the out-of-pocket max
Yeah.
is less than our insurance costs would be. So, it's very rare to have an insurance plan that allows you, an individual, to get to the max. I mean, those are pretty poorly structured plans. But, how much exposure you have is going to vary, and that's going to really depend. But we would, again, immediately save out-of-pocket, cap is here, insurance costs is, we're going to make some money here, but what we're really going to make a difference in is claims, right? We don't get exposed to someone's claims.
Is there any, if the pool really dropped if this really took off and the pool went way down of how many employees were in it, is there any risk of premiums on really going up on the plan, at a future renegotiations, you don't have nearly what you had for.
Oh, in terms of you're not bringing lots of business, this
Correct.
kind of thing. I think the thing that we have learned from our benefits advisor is that it is a pretty unique person or family that this is probably going to appeal to. For example, we're modeling this a lot after CISA 2, which is again another public employer. They had approximately 100 people on their plan, so smaller than us. They had 4 to 5 of their people go, and so it's not going to appeal to a broad group. But for those that it will appeal to are probably those that are going to have medical claims, right? Because if you're not, why would you go if you're not going to have claims? There's other options that would be probably more appealing to you to stay.
Good job, Brian. That's a hard concept to figure out. Anyway, any other questions? If not, we need a motion to approve this option.
Motion to approve the family reimbursement account option.
Second.
Everybody good with the understanding? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Moving on to policy committee.
Policy, we're into the 500 series, which is more the staff, but in terms of rating, I think he's going to clarify the remaining one in the 400 series?
Yep, we have a couple that are remaining from the 400 series. I'll just touch on those real quickly. 447.3 was with regards to student suspension. I believe this was one that came in front of the board, and there was a question that was related to if a student was suspended, would they be able to participate in like an evening activity? The answer to that is, let's just use today as an example. If I were to be suspended from school today and there was an event this evening, no, you wouldn't be able to participate in that. But if there was an event on Thursday, that would be up to the building principal to determine if it's relevant. There may be a consequence to it, but otherwise it would probably be done that day. There's certainly abilities for our principals to look at how we utilize suspension and then where that may apply. So for example, there may be an incident where it's tied to something that's linked to like a co-curricular activity, and then there may be other consequences that like you're not allowed to go to the basketball game for the rest of the season. Those type of things have happened, just depending on the nature of it, and we have the latitude to do that. I think the other piece related to this is that if you are a student who is held accountable also under the athletic code, and if there's a suspension, suspensions are also articulated as far as then any other implications per the athletic code. So there, as an athlete, for someone who is participating in that, may have other consequences as a result. But I think that was generally the question around that policy. So I think I answered what at least the question was, but if there's any further questions, I'll be happy to answer that. Okay. The other items, the scholarship ones, those were just ones that we weren't prepared with before we came before the board. This is with regards to the Wisconsin Academic Excellence and Technical Excellence scholarships. These are ones that are governed by state law as far as the scholarships that we provide to our students annually that are really governed at those four-year and technical college, very specific scholarships geared to those students. The rest of the policies that you see here, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Brian's been very involved with our review with Ted and with the policy committee. We are in the 500 series, which is all dealing with human resources. So Brian's been very engaged as far as looking at each of the policies that you have in front of us to make sure that they articulate not only what is being recommended from the School Board Association, but also making sure that we include the language in there that looks at our current practice. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to address them, or Brian will help me with those if they come up. Otherwise, we're looking for approval of these this evening.
Motion to approve all of the policies presented. Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Great. Thank
I would
you.
like to thank the policy committee for giving us an opportunity to review our policies in detail. So
Yes, we are.
it's good to revisit them.
There will be more next month, so we'll keep going.
All right.
Thanks, Brian.
Next, we have Facility Committee, and we do have a couple things that we need approval for, but if I could, Steve, I could maybe pass this to you.
Yes, thank you, Joan. So the first agenda item where we're requesting board consideration this evening is the one that's called District Capital Maintenance Projects. What we've attached for you is two documents. The first one is a document that just is something we share with the Facility Committee every month so the committee can track all of the projects that have been approved. We just included this in here for information purposes. The capital maintenance attachment is the one that includes the projects that are being requested for approval this month. It's a significantly smaller list than you've seen in recent months, as our focus has been on implementing many of the projects that have been approved over the last couple of months. But we did bring forward a smaller list for consideration from the committee. There are funds remaining on the tracking list that were identified for these projects. The Facility Committee did recommend approving those projects on a 3-0 motion. If there's a particular question on one of the projects, we'll ask John to come up and answer that, but otherwise the motion was 3-0 to recommend consideration from the board this evening.
Move to approve as presented.
Second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Do you want
So-
to continue, Steve?
The next agenda item is not an action item for the board. It is more of just a statement of sharing transparency from an action that the facility committee took, so the rest of the board is aware of it. When the Heritage Elementary School project started, the full board took a motion on approval levels for change orders throughout the project. So going back in time a little bit. Every change order that has been submitted prior to this one fell under the approval level of the district superintendent. So changes have gone to Randy, they've been discussed at our owners' meetings, Randy's been able to approve them. But we were presented with one that fell within the category that the board had approved for facility committee level approval. So Rich Stoffels from Vogel did come to the facility committee meeting, talked through what that change order was. We have included in the packet this evening the contingency tracker, which is reviewed every month by the facility committee that shows the status of the contingencies. So that's included for your review. We've also included information on this particular change order request, which was related to metal panels and where the roof connects to the exterior of the building. There was a request to add metal panels so the look was uniform throughout the entire school. Rich presented that information to the facility committee. The facility committee did recommend, or did actually approve the change order on a 3-0 motion. It is just being shared here this evening, so the remainder of the board is aware of that change order request. And again, first one that crossed that threshold level. Randy, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you covered it well. This is the first one. We've had a really clean project, so we haven't had very many change orders that have come forward. This is the first one that's really needed any attention of the board, so it was approved by the committee, so this was more just an FYI for you this evening.
All right, so the next one is a little bit of a different request from us. This is a request to reverse some of the spending that we asked the board to approve in March. So a little bit of what's going on with this one is at the facility committee in March, Vogel attended the meeting and shared information with the committee regarding both targeted replacement work, targeted referendum work at the high school, and capital maintenance work at the high school. At the March board meeting, the board also approved the extension of the contracts for both Vogel and EUA to look at and evaluate options for the high school campus. In between the March board meeting and April's meeting, administration has started working with Vogel and EUA to begin the process of the 6 to 9 months that we anticipate that it's going to take to put together a wide range of options. Randy did direct the team to complete a thorough and comprehensive review of options for the high school. In our initial meetings, Vogel realized that based on that direction from Randy, looking at a comprehensive and thorough review of possible options for a high school campus, some of the maintenance work that we did request approval on during the month of March could conflict with an ultimate option that you will have in front of you in 6 to 9 months. And in the packet tonight is a map that Vogel Brothers created and shared with the facility committee that identified that work that potentially could be a conflict with an option that you will be reviewing in the future. So the facility committee's recommendation to the board this evening is to hold on the capital maintenance work identified in the map on the areas in blue there's blue areas in the map with lines through it, library flooring and terrazzo flooring repairs. So that was the scope that was reviewed during the facility committee and is now being recommended to pull back that work in anticipation of the board being presented with options 6 to 9 months from now. In addition, Vogel Brothers is requesting a change in the casework supplier to go to the award approval to Hillcraft in lieu of Wynn Jones. That became apparent to Vogel that after a more extensive review, that the lowest bidder was Hillcraft that met the requirements of the bidding process. So the two actions that came out of the discussion in the high school were, number one, to pull back some of the maintenance work that was previously approved, and number two, to switch the supplier for the casework from Wynn Jones to Hillcraft. And we'd be happy to answer any questions. If you want to pull up the map, we're happy to pull up the map and take a look at it. But we certainly appreciated the dialogue with the facility committee and the willingness to take a step back and just take another look at what we had approved last month to make sure that we were making, the best long-term decisions that we could be making. Randy, anything to add?
No, I think these came out of, as Steve said, some of our conversations with our Vogel and EUA team, particularly as we had our initial meeting to kind of lay out what the scope of their next body of work was going to be with us. And as we further discussed kind of the options that we would like eventually presented to this body, then it was apparent that there were a few things that, from their review, that they felt that they needed to bring to our attention. So that's really what we're addressing here this evening. So we feel comfortable with the direction that's being recommended and the ideas that they brought forward, and I think that's in line with at least the conversations that we've had around this table with regards to wanting to have a thorough investigation and multiple options in front of you for the high school campus.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. And I think we're on our last committee, budget.
Steve, you want to take that?
Sure, thank you, Jack. So for the first agenda item, hazardous transportation areas report, we do have a couple of folks who joined us on Zoom. So just be aware as board members that we do have both Christian, we've got actually two staff members. I don't know if you can see them. Oh yeah, there we go. Christian and Angela from TADDY are joining us, so they can definitely jump in when we have more complicated questions that are beyond my scope to try to answer. And Allie's joined us as well to talk through this. So for community members, I just want to give a minute of a background. So TADDY is a company that we hired initially to perform a traffic analysis for the new Heritage Elementary School and the new middle school as part of the requirements for the construction of the facility. So it's presented to the village when we're seeking approval for the plans. And then we presented the board with proposals from them to do a comprehensive review for our hazardous transportation areas that we have across the district. And the board made a decision to take a comprehensive review beyond the scope of the two new facilities. So if you recall, when we first looked at this, we started with proposals that looked at the new Heritage Elementary School, the new middle school, but then the board requested a review of all hazardous transportation areas. And so we approved a contract that was a comprehensive district-wide look at all of the different schools in the district. So Rebecca's pulling up, this is basically a high-level map report for each of the schools, and we're going to just quickly go through the results of the report. We're going to talk about what the recommendations are. No action is requested this evening. I'm going to work with Annie to get a communication out to the public so our parents can understand what the results were of this recommendation, as well as what the initial reaction of the school board is. And then we are requesting to bring this back at the May board meeting for approval. Rebecca pulled up, first of all, the map for Arboretum Elementary School. And to orientate yourself a little bit to the map, you'll see in the upper right in the box, it says no recommended changes to the walk zone. So there is a recommendation that goes for each of the schools. So for Arboretum in the upper right, you see no recommended changes. The area that was reviewed by the traffic consultants is highlighted. It's basically the Arboretum Village, the new development, and what the board wanted to take a look at was, again, the community has changed. Is it a safe, are there safe paths for the students in Arboretum Village to be able to get to the school, walking or biking? And then on the left, the lower left part of the map, are recommendations from our consultants on how to make that walk or bike for those students to be safer. So when you look at each of the maps and you look at, like, in the lower left corner of this one, there is a recommendation that goes along Arboretum Drive in Hogan, which is where the majority of these students will walk down and cross, to improve the crosswalk at that location. So for the district, that would mean that we would be taking the results of this report, and Allie and I would go down and meet with the village of Waunakee and share this information with them. We don't have the authority to make these changes, but we certainly can begin that discussion with the village so that they can see that there are recommendations that we have for improving the safe walking to and from school for our students. So that's kind of how you orientate yourself on every map, is really kind of the recommendation for, the safety, a recommendation for the school, and then you can see what was really reviewed. Jack?
Who pays for these recommendations? Is it the village or is it the district?
So Jack's question is related to the far left. You see that there's a recommendation to improve the safety, basically the intersection of Hogan and Arboretum. In the past, it has been done sometimes by the district, sometimes by the village. So as an example, the entrance to the intermediate school, when the intermediate school was constructed, the district paid for the sign, the push button sign. We will be paying for the push button sign in front of the heritage site. But for all of the other improvements that are throughout the entire village, all of those were paid for by the village of Waunakee. So most of the improvements that you would see in the community have been paid for by the village, but when the school district has had new construction, we've paid for them. So this would be something where we would want to have that discussion with the village to talk about these recommendations with them.
Thank you.
So Arboretum, no changes to what we're currently doing for busing or walking at a high level. Rebecca, if you want to go to the next slide, our next map. So Prairie, the focus of Prairie was taking a look at the Heritage Hills subdivision that's shaded off to the right-hand side of the map. You can see the recommendation there again, no recommended changes to the walk zone based on the evaluation. So took, again, an extensive look at the newer developments that are in the Prairie Elementary School area, and it was deemed to continue to be safe for elementary age students to walk or bike to school from that location. If you want to move on, Rebecca. All right, so here's where the maps start getting a little more complicated. This is the map for the new Heritage Elementary School. So you see quite a few more colors on this map. Basically, to orientate yourself, you would see at the top of the map, Main Street or Highway 19. In the middle of the map, you would see Highway Q. To the right of Highway Q or to the east, you would see the area in pink or red. That is deemed hazardous. So as you look at this map, the areas in pink or red are deemed hazardous. For the new Heritage Elementary School, the areas in green are safe for elementary age students to walk to Heritage. The area in yellow is best described as caution. There are recommended improvements to walking throughout that neighborhood for the students in the area that is identified as yellow. So we've got different colors on this map, but fundamentally, Highway Q and 19 have been identified as the hazardous areas for the brand new Heritage School. It's a reverse of really what currently exists. So what currently exists is where the Heritage location is today. It is the students on the opposite direction of Q that is a hazard for them. So basically the situation for hazardous transportation basically flip-flops for the new school. One area of consideration that we're bringing to the board's attention, if you see the circular dotted line, that is the 1 mile distance from the new Heritage Elementary School. You will see that circular dotted line intersects with the yellow, meaning that there are homes that are inside the Highway 19 and Q neighborhood, that if the 1 mile elementary attendance transportation policy is applied, you would have homes in there that would become eligible for transportation for the new Heritage School, but they are not eligible for the intermediate school. So one topic of discussion for the board would be whether or not the board seeks to adopt Highway 19 and Highway Q as the hazardous transportation area, and to keep the transportation consistent for both Heritage and the intermediate school, where we would then work with the village on the areas identified in yellow to make sure that the safety improvements are made for the students to walk or bike from that location to school. But absent a policy change, where you see the hash mark going throughout the area in yellow, to the north of that, those homes, we'd be creating a small little sliver of homes that a bus would go in there to only get the Heritage students, but would not get the intermediate school students. So that's a discussion point for the board, because it would require a slight change to the transportation policy.
Steve, do you have a feel where that dotted line intersects Q up to Highway 19? What's that distance? Do you have a...
I would say 1/10 of a mile would be a really close approximation.
Thank you.
Rebecca, if you want to go to the next map.
Is there any way to back into whether there's a cost impact? If they're already there picking up students for Heritage, can we assume that it's the same cost then to pick up intermediate as well, or do we think that that would then overload a bus and require additional routes?
Great question. So prior to the referendum, we did receive questions from the community on transportation costs related to Heritage moving from its current location to where it's being constructed today. And the transportation was almost equal with the number of students who would change eligibility based on the location of the school. So we do not anticipate what you see on this map for the K-4 routes resulting in any financial change or route change either way. And the few homes that are included in that small band would be insignificant and would just be added to one of the existing routes. But with the question you just posed, if we go to the next map, that's not the case. The next map, I'm sorry, it's 2 maps from this one, so I'll hold that for just a moment, Dawn. The next map is the intermediate school, which confirms again Highway Q and Highway 19 as hazardous transportation areas for intermediate school age students. And again, it's green all the way to 19 in Q, so you will see again, if you compare this to the prior map, there's that little area, that little geographical area that will become a difference between those two schools pending a board policy change. Rebecca, if you could go to the next map. So here's where the most significant change is. We had talked about at this table before approving the consultant's proposal that the middle school was likely going to see the most significant changes. And to Dawn, your question about costs, this would result in a reduction in the number of routes that we are running today in 5th through 12th grade. What you're seeing on the screen right now is the analysis for the middle school, and the majority of the village of Waunakee is green, which means safe walking to and from school for middle school students. As one example, Highway Q right now, if you go to the west of Highway Q, all of that in this analysis is green. Currently today, it's all hazardous transportation for 7th and 8th graders, even though there's community drive right there, there's crossing guards right there, because it's a legacy plan from over 20 years ago. This review has identified all of those areas as being safe for 7th and 8th grade students to walk or bike to school. So this is a significant change. When you look at all of the maps that are being presented tonight, this is the one with the most significant change being called for from what we're currently doing. In fact, the change is so significant, Randy's recommendation is to connect this transportation change to the opening of the new middle school, so that there's plenty of time to really educate the community on this change. This analysis was conducted from the location of the new middle school. However, the logic applies to where the current middle school is today. But Randy, looking forward, just making sure there's plenty of time for the community to be aware of this, is recommending the connection to the opening of the new school. But just to be aware, this is a very, very significant change and would be a reversal of decades worth of busing practices for middle school age students in the district. So just be aware of that. Why is that the case? The consultants, this report is based on a scientific study based on the age of the students. Our prior hazardous transportation plan treated kindergartners the same as 8th graders. This report doesn't do that. It looks at the age appropriate for all of the students at each of the schools and analyzes for each of them based on what's appropriate and safe for their age and their ability to walk to and from school. So just note the big changes here, and then Rebecca, if you want to go on to the next slide. So the high school currently is not covered by the existing hazardous transportation plan. It goes through 8th grade. You do see a small area in pink, but basically the high school remains as it is in green, which means safe for high school age students to walk to and from school. That's a really high level overview. We do have the experts on Zoom if you want to get into some specific questions on, the change at the middle school or questions about the new Heritage Elementary School. They're the folks that did the work and have the expertise in this. We're not intending to ask them to come back to the May meeting, so if there's anything that you really wanted to know about any of these maps, this is a great time to ask them. Or if either of you have anything that you want to add that you think I missed, please feel free to jump in.
I don't necessarily have a question for the team who did the safety review. Thank you for this. Steve, at some point in the future in the budget meeting, I would love to understand if we were to change our policy to reduce the distance around the high school for 4 walkers to 1 mile and just have it be the same distance regardless of age, what that does for cost. Because I realize we have a net cost reduction with the middle school review. I'm not sure if that would take us right back to costing more or be at parity. I'm totally blanking on if it's like 1.4 miles or what the distance is right now for high school students. I know I have it in my notes, but that's something I'd be interested in seeing in the future.
Sure, absolutely. So the current policy for 5th through 12th
Steve, sorry to
grade.
interrupt. The high school map is on the next slide, by the way.
Yeah,
Oh, was I one map ahead?
yeah, there it is.
Oh, thank you. So the current policy for the high school is 1.75 miles from the intersection of Knightsbridge and South Street, just to give you a frame of reference of what we currently have that we use for the high school. And absolutely, Dawn, we can run scenarios. Lamers does use a GIS system that has the ability to change dimensions and see what that does for the number of students on routing. So we can absolutely add that to future budget committee agendas and work on that. Anything, go ahead.
I think one of the things that we've got to take a look at, and I don't think the problem's going to go away, is just bus drivers. And I know we're struggling to get bus drivers, and no matter who we go with, everybody's got that problem. So I think we've got to look at least have the conversation around that topic and what we can do to minimize that requirement is probably good.
Any comments at all from our TADDY team? Anything you want to add? Any questions that board members have?
Well, I can just say, I'm Christian Sturkey from TADDY, senior traffic engineer, been there about 11 years now. We've done multiple UHT studies started with Verona, Monona Grove, Sun Prairie, Oshkosh, Arborvitae. They've all been accepted by DPI and the county sheriff. So a lot has gone into these, and they've been peer reviewed multiple times. So we're pretty confident in our analysis. So yeah, I'm here to field any questions that you may have about what goes into it or how we came up with the scores and the lines. But if you don't have any, that's good too.
I guess I'd just like to, whether it's our experts or Steve, I know we had a concern at the Highway 19 crossing around, it's just west of the roundabout. So are there sufficient crossings for high school students west of the roundabout so it's a safe situation?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about that. Mark's referencing the apartment complex. We had talked about that, the one that's over near the McDonald's area in town. Would you mind just, because you took a look at that?
Yeah, you want to go to page 6, please? Because that kind of zooms in on that area a little bit. So this one is looking at the community middle school, but the same kind of thing would apply for the high school. So what we really try and do is find realistic routes that would be safe. So in this instance, for the middle school, the lowest score is actually going like across Fifth and then up Holiday, using that signal to cross and getting there rather than going through the roundabouts. Just because we know that roundabouts they're not the best for pedestrians, so we try and avoid sending the kids through there if possible. So part of our plans are trying to find the best route and to encourage the students to go that way. So really, in this way, and for this, it'd best be to not use the roundabout and go to the signal at Holiday Drive to access that quadrant. And we do provide a couple of recommendations to two of the routes just to make them even lower the risk than what they currently are. But based on our scoring thresholds, that area would be acceptable if those recommendations aren't implemented either.
So Mark, they were reviewed and deemed to be safe to walk.
There's a walking place also by the post office, isn't there?
Yep.
Crosswalk.
Yep.
Thank you.
There's no further questions, just know we're gonna bring this back next month, but the two things really as board members to be thinking about is the mile policy limit for elementary schools and whether you would choose to keep that in place, which would mean we would send a bus into that far northern quadrant of that neighborhood, or whether you would adopt as the transportation policy for the new heritage, basically Q and 19. And the second thing is Randy's recommendation to adopt the middle school but delay the implementation until the opening of the middle school so that the community can be, informed about that pretty significant change that would be potentially coming in about 2 years.
Yeah, if I can just add a couple of things. I think just to kind of state the question around intermediate and heritage a different way. Do you want those two to have to be aligned with what their walking and transportation policy would be, or do you want them to be different? Because right now, per the maps, we'd be busing a small quadrant of heritage kids, but once they go into intermediate, then they would have to walk. So there could be clarity just from a neighborhood standpoint, given that, just to align those. So that's kind of what you're asking. And I think Steve's already articulated my recommendation for the middle school, which would be to wait until that school is built, and then make the change and give ample opportunity for people to know that that's coming.
Okay, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so the second part of the budget was approval of new positions.
Ellie's going to take that.
So when we first started budget planning for 24-25, there was a couple of priorities we wanted to make sure made it into the budget first and foremost. And that was compensation increases, the 5% insurance rate increase, and then also the schedule change at the middle school, which required new FTE. So once that was in the budget, that didn't really leave a lot of funding left over for anything else. And that would have included anything that was brought forward from the building and department meetings that we went through and had with each building and department. So on this memo, we did find some creative funding sources to be able to achieve some of those priorities that each building and department felt were necessary. Some of those funding sources include transfer of service, the high-cost special education aid, moving some programs to fund 80. So with those opportunities, we were able to accomplish everything that was brought forward in the memo. I won't go through the memo in detail, but if there's any questions, Tiffany's here to answer questions about special education, Lisa's here to answer questions about student services, and then we'd be happy to answer questions.
If I can just add something, Allie, one of the things that Steve and Allie, Brian, and I did is we met with each of the budget directors to talk through what their recommendations were. And then after we had a sense of what the alternative funding options were, we were then able to kind of weigh in as far as what we thought was reasonable, what kind of was rising to the top as far as priorities across the district, and then also trying to align some of those with some of where the dollars fell. I mean, some of the things with Tiffany did a phenomenal job finding some dollars with regards to high-cost special ed needs. So we did allocate some of those dollars to some of the requests that she had, but not all of them, and we put those into other places as well. So I think that what you're seeing in front of you is a pretty thorough investigation into what some of our needs are, and then trying to not only move some of the programs forward, but making sure that we have the services distributed across the district. It certainly doesn't hit every item on the request sheet, but I think it hits some of the ones that are kind of broadly address issues across multiple different schools and programs.
Do you have a feel for how many new positions we put in the budget this year? Just total?
Yeah, Yeah, so it'll be the two at the middle school, for the schedule changes, and then just the positions that are on this one. Which off the top of my head, I'm not sure exactly.
But all of these are associated with funding, so there's none of these that are not funded. They have a funding source tied to them.
So when you say funding source, that's state funding?
No, it could have been reallocation of funding. It could have been, Fund 80 is a different way of looking at the levy, where we moved some of the programs out of the extracurriculars, like we do. We have sports out of the middle school. We fund those through Fund 80. We put all of their other co-curriculars similarly situated, which then frees up money in Fund 10, which we can utilize differently. High-cost special ed aid, the transfer of service, being able to maximize that. High-need special ed aid, we've never done that before. That was a piece that there's some different worksheets that I know Tiffany and Steve and Allie have worked through and learned some pieces through some of our contacts at CISA that then allowed us to really capitalize on a funding source. That one is state money that will allow us to then utilize that differently.
And I don't think we should really gloss over how much that is. I mean, with the work that Tiffany, Steve, and Ellie did, they came up with $350,000.
Right.
That's
new funding coming in from the state.
And it's funding that we can get each year, so it's not transfer of service is a little bit different. You claim transfer of service on a student when they come in brand new. You can't claim them every year, whereas high-cost aid, assuming the student's cost of services stay at $30,000 or above, and most students that have that level, their services don't significantly change. Over a short period of time, we can claim that high-cost aid every single year for those same students moving forward and for additional new students when they come in. So it is a funding source that isn't just a one-time funding source.
Yeah.
And I think Steve probably summarizes it the best, but I think the key with getting this additional funds, it is funding additional special ed positions, but it is freeing up money in Fund 10 to cover some of the other proposed positions so that we aren't having to find sources of funding for those additional positions out of Fund 10.
So for each of the items, you can see where it's being funded from and where those dollars came from, because as Allie said, when we came right out of the very first initial blush of the draft of our budget, we were balanced, but we were also expended what we had. So the only way we were going to move any way further into what we felt was our needs list was to look at creative funding and look at other funding options. And so that's really what we've spent much of our time, and particularly these folks, doing over the last number of months in preparation for the first draft of the budget. And I think our intent here is, knowing that we have a tight time frame with regards to hiring and wanting to get into the market as early as possible, wanting to bring that to you. But this would be articulated then into the first draft of the budget moving forward. But wanted to show you that these were the requests and then where the funding was coming from that would address them.
I don't think I'm glossing over the work that these people are doing. I think you guys are doing a great job. It's just a matter of understanding more than anything. It's not glossing over a thing.
Is there anything specific, Jack, you'd like it? Would you like us to go through each one of them, or do you want us to?
No, this is fine.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
It's fine.
You'd like, you're
No,
okay.
I'm good.
All right.
If there are no questions, we would like approval of this list, so as Randy said, Brian can begin the hiring or securing of these positions.
Motion to approve the FTEs proposed.
Second.
Any other questions that you want to ask before? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. All right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And that concludes our committees. We are at the administrative reports. Miranda, thank you
Yeah.
for waiting so long.
Yes, I have to say, it's my first board meeting, and it's just really lived up to the expectations so far. It's been great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Good, did you get the candy and?
I helped myself out
Good,
there.
good.
I waited, but no treats came around. It's really sad.
That's right. No.
So I'm so excited to be here, and it's been just a great week to be here. It's actually the week of the young child. So just celebrating all our teachers, early childhood, 4K, and that's a nationwide week. And so if you've been watching social media all week, you'll just see all of our 4K sites really out there and just putting kind of a spotlight on them this week. So, and perfect timing for me to be here. So I am the 4K director part-time, and then I am the K4 associate principal over at Arboretum. And there's a lot of people that are part of it, but my main staff is Mackenzie Lutz, and she is like 1/10 of a social worker for 4K, and then she wears a lot of other hats. And then Noelle is a quarter school psychologist for us, and then her other roles are with early childhood, Arboretum, so we split them up throughout. And then of course we do have 2 of our special ed teachers that are early childhood and 4K, and then we have a lot of speech and language. They kind of divvy up all of our sites, OT, PT, anything like that. So we have a crew, but we are the main 3 out there. Oh, it's not working. There we go. So this though is the heart of our 4K. So these are our 4K teachers. I know it's kind of hard to see, but I just wanted to make sure that they get the spotlight because they do all our work for us out there, and they're a great group of ladies that we have there. So just wanted to kind of throw that picture out there to remember who's doing all the work for us out in our centers.
Could I just ask a question?
Sure.
These teachers are above and beyond what the preschools are staffing, so they go into individuals?
Sure, so the 4K teachers are just for 4K, so they're licensed teachers within our centers, and their job is to teach 4K. Some of them do have other duties as assigned, so they might have a morning group before 4K starts, or maybe they have to cover a baby room or something at lunch. Some of our, like at Inspire, we only have morning 4K, and then they go to Inspire's wraparound in the afternoon.
So are they employed by the center or
They're
by the?
employed by the centers.
Okay.
Yep, that is our model. So here are 4K sites. Again, Annie, and I forget who the high school person is, but if you look on our mapping, you can see where all the sites are. I just kind of broke it down. Most people have a morning and afternoon. Inspire has 2 mornings with no afternoon. And then starting in 24-25, we are bringing La Petite Academy on, and they will be doing 1 morning section. We do have a couple sites in Waunakee area that I've reached out to, but they're not interested of partnering at this time. And it can be just for various reasons why they won't. But we do have a lot of sites out there. I'm always happy to take people if you ever want to check out all the great things going on or check out a few places. I'm happy to give a tour. Randy got to experience that this year, and it was pretty great. You feel really good about yourself by the time you leave. They want to talk to you and, you know, hold your hand and have you read a book, and it's a good time. Our schedule, so we do have morning and afternoon currently, so we start at 7:40 to 10:20, and then we start back up with the 11:35 to 2:15. We do follow the Waunakee School District calendar, except for that last day of school. Since we're a half day, we end the day before that, just so they can have equal amounts. Our values, Amy started 4K, how long, 12, 14 years? 12, 14?
16.
Yeah. 2011, and so we've stuck with those same values, just really making sure that all our 4-year-olds are getting that high quality experience with that whole child. We are still a play-based approach. We follow the Wisconsin model early learning standards. Our teachers do get, and I'll talk a little more about the professional development, but they do get professional development. We do work with the directors and other stakeholders. We do have that safe, welcoming environment, and we make sure that all students within our district have access to the 4K program. And again, it is a non-paid program, right? So they can come to 4K, they don't have to pay unless they want the wraparound care.
So Miranda, if I'm a early childhood center
Yep.
in our district,
Mhm.
can I offer a 4K program without being affiliated with the school?
You can, and we do have some that do that. So St. John's this year started a private 4K. And then, yes, they're not part of the district. Inspire has one program too that is not part of the district.
Okay, thank you.
But they don't have to follow a specific curriculum, right? They don't do report card, anything like that. So they're really not part of the district. And some other places have looked into it and doing it more, calling it a 4K, but then it's really just full-time daycare.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
For standards, these are the ones that, and we do have report cards, so those do come out twice a year. They come out in November and then again at the end of the year. We look at the health and physical development, social and emotional, language, just that curiosity and creativity, and then the cognitive and general knowledge. I did link the standards here if you're ever curious, kind of. Our teachers have a lot that they, are working through. It's a pretty big book, so if you ever want to dig into the WMLs, feel free. I have a hard copy too if you need that. Our curriculum, we do use creative curriculum. So there's different things our teachers can use, and then we have bins that they can check out that we call them units of study. We are going to be piloting the updated version of the creative curriculum for the fall, and then we'll see if that's something we want to adopt or not. We do have second step for social and emotional, and then we do, as Amy mentioned before, have Haggerty for our phonics. I mentioned earlier, so 4K teacher PD days currently, so the last 2 years that I've been the director, I have teachers vote on it, kind of what they're looking for. So the last 2 years, we've done 4 half days and 1 full day. Some different topics that the teachers have worked through are the Haggerty, just the training of that and making sure we're up to that with fidelity. We've done 2 different book studies. Last year we did Lisa Murphy's on play, and this year we just finished up Lisa Murphy on being child-centered. We did a 4K site tour where that was the bus picture, so I put all the teachers on the bus and we hit every 4K site, and they just really got to brag about their space and just show off all the great things because they don't get that opportunity to really leave their buildings. So they really enjoyed that, and I think Jeremy really enjoyed taking us all around Waunakee for the day. Other things, so STAR Early Literacy, that was mentioned earlier, that's the assessment we use, and that's something we just adopted. This year we did PALS before that, but PALS stopped and is no longer around, so we just adopted this. And what's really neat about this is it goes right into kindergarten. So this will be the first year that we have the same data that kindergarten teachers will get to look at, and will actually get to continue to watch their growth. Although if it doesn't get approved in the fall under the new Act 20, it won't work. But that was kind of our hope, that we would use something that we could see growth, and we'd have a little more insight on what our 4Kers knew coming into kindergarten. We did an Eckers deep dive. So Eckers is actually just started this week, and what they're a company we use that comes in and does kind of the evaluation using those WML standard and looks at all these different areas of the classroom, the teacher, and they do the evaluation for them. And then in May, they get to meet with their evaluator, and they get a score and just kind of learn about ways they can improve their center, their teaching, and then the great things that they're doing. So we could do that ourselves, but the manpower of trying to do that, and also just preserving the relationships with the teachers, right? I do their PD, I do a lot of things with them, and I became their evaluator on top of that. Like, we just want to keep helping them grow and preserve that, so it's nice to kind of have a third party come in, give them that information, and then we do look at that, and that's some of our PD of how can we continue to improve on that.
What's your turnover of teachers?
Sure, so
4K.
So the last 2 years, we have been pretty steady except for one center. The thing you have to think about, right, they're not district employees.
Right.
So lots of them are getting daycare pay, depending on what their site does. They don't get like the insurance through us or anything like that. So some of the sites have greater turnover, and some of them have been here probably since Eden's been here. Other things, we've really looked at self-regulation and intervention, just what that looks like, the overview and process. A couple years ago, it was kind of getting out of hand that everyone was referring kids for special ed and speech, and so we really tried to change that process and really look at that and how we can put things into place in the classroom before we just refer a child. So that's a lot of what myself, Mackenzie, and Noel do. We go out into the classrooms, we do the consulting, we give feedback, we give interventions to try. We might, help them chart different behaviors. So we're trying to do that and then keep supporting that as kids are growing in all of the 9 different sites right now. Other things teachers have done is the fine motor, communication, math, and literacy. You can't see the numbers. I know you guys know this, but they're all over the place, right? So if you look at that bottom number, so it's the top number is district and then open enrolled. And then, so I mean, it's all up and down. We already have 211 kids enrolled for next year. That's one thing I've really tried to do is get that enrollment as soon as we can, just so we can get kids placed. So I mean, numbers, like you saw in 2020 and 2021 were really high, and then they kind of went down, and we've kind of stayed steady. You guys have any questions about the numbers?
And when you look at this, each one of these facilities probably has different capacity. How do you kind of direct parents saying you're going to go to this facility, or give them options, or how do you place those students?
So one, we have to go by the facility state license requirements. So if, like Moffett, for instance, they only can have 12 kids based on their square footage, where like Peace Lutheran could have 20 kids. And then we have to also look at the ratio of age, so they have to have 1 teacher to every 13 kids, and then if they have more than that, they have to have a para or another adult in the room. And now that we have busing zones, if the kids want to be bused to or from daycare, they have to pick a daycare or a 4K site that's in that busing zone. So if you live in the Arboretum Elementary, you get to pick from Adventures, Brilliant, Mary Lake, and St. John's goes to all sites. So it's actually one of the most nerve-wracking parts of my job is that I have to place kids and then hope that parents are happy. So they rank 1 through 5, and they get to pick as AM most important, PM, and then you have to work with each site to know who's going to go to daycare there, because you want to try to put the kids, where they're going to go to daycare, so we're not busing them. So it's a big process.
So are most of these kids then, do they have wraparound services then, or?
A lot of them do, but I would not say most. I mean,
Okay.
Lots of kids do go home to families.
Okay.
Yep. And also that's, I know Waunakee just passed some money for the daycares, but I mean, our daycares are at capacity right now. I have a new little guy that just moved in and they can't find daycare, so they can't go to a 4K because they can't get wraparound. So I mean, there really is a need for some of those daycares. They can't take more kids to do the wraparound care. We also, I know other parents that are moving in, I mean, there's wait list to try to get in. So you can't pick your 4K site because you can't get wraparound care.
Understood.
Yeah. Another thing, so I work with other directors, and I just thought this was really interesting. I had kind of pulled this together. Someone else had brought it up. So just some of the different schools in Dean County, how many sites they have and how many sections. So besides Madison, I mean, we're at the top of sections and sites. That's Middleton at the bottom there. So I just thought this was kind of interesting information to know. A couple of them, like Lodi, like their 4K is actually in their school. But yeah, so I just find this kind of interesting as we continue to look at what our 4K program looks like and how we compare to others in Dean County.
Is Lodi the only school that has or are
No,
these other
Middleton
districts?
Madison is kind of its own, they have both. Middleton has some of each now, and Stoughton is in the school district, like in a building. And then this breaks it down on what the different people are doing. So like, right, I'm a K-4 principal and a 4K director. Like DeForest, Oregon, Madison, they are only directors and they don't have another role. So I just put some of this to see like what it looks like across some of the schools in Dean County. So Monona Grove, they must also be 4KK. They must be in the schools too, because they have a one role.
What is that?
I said Monona Grove, their 4K is in a school building.
Okay.
Any questions on this?
Not on this, Miranda, but do you have a sense of what percentage our kindergarten kids would have completed our 4K program, whether here or another one?
Yeah, it's pretty high. I would say almost all, I mean, I'm just thinking of Arboretum alone, like we know all but 2.
Okay.
And it not necessarily our 4K program, but they've done some 4K program, right? So like if they went to a daycare, they might have done their 4K program, but I would say it's, I don't know the percent off my head, but I mean, I would say most kids have had a 4K experience.
So when you look at that, you know, if you get a 4K experience, you come better prepared in kindergarten, right? And you got all-day kindergarten these days. Are you bringing some of that first grade work, you know, into kindergarten, you know, from a curriculum standpoint? I was just curious.
No, I mean, again, we're play-based, so I feel that our 4K is still truly,
Yeah.
like, not as academic, where kindergarten, they still do more of, I mean, back when I went to kindergarten, yeah, it's different, but I still feel that our kindergarten.
My kindergarten was probably different than
Right, it was probably more like, yeah. No, but I mean, we went really hard at trying to keep our 4K play-based.
They passed me to first grade because they didn't want me anymore.
But we work really hard at keeping our 4K play-based and trying to make it right about social emotional, just getting routines and stuff. So I do think, and I think Amy and the rest of the schools do try to keep kindergarten, first grade, but again, you have to kind of go with standards and what things are shifting to.
Yeah, I was looking at your earlier slide and your 4K goes from 1 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Well, I
So
know
how
really
long?
hardcore here.
I saw two. I'm wondering, what do you do to get these parents to bring their kids
Well,
that
the buses
early?
take them, it's good. You just drop them off. Another thing I've really worked on.
Just a quick question. How long is it a half day?
It's 2 hours and
2
40
hours.
minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
So not a half.
Thank you.
Yep. Or it's 12 hours. So family engagement, that's been something that I've really tried to do even more of. So one thing before is we now have 4K, which I know might change again, but 4K is now included in some of those bigger elementary events like the barbecue kickoff, the Family Fun Fitness, and the FTO Ice Cream Social. Other things, we have Family Literacy Night, Family Science Night, Family Math Night, and then our big event, which you're all welcome to, is the end of the year celebration. We did it for the first time last year. It was at the library. We had a bubble man, we had Kona Ice, and we had 500 people, and it was crazy. Right, it was great. Randy joined, and
Can you send me an invite?
I will. It's May 30th, 5 to 7. Be there.
Or 5 to 5.
Or 5 to 5, yeah.
5 to 5.
But what's really great is, I mean, we're seeing numbers about 150 to 200 people showing up to these things just for 4K, so it's
That's pretty cool.
yeah, and I think it's just really great to see the families involved, and again, with their first experience. So that's been wonderful. The other thing is we had, the last 2 years now, we've done the registration of the family orientation meeting. I learned my first year, I did do it before registration started, and poor Julie had to crack so much, so I did it this time before registration. just to really help, again, our new families, help them with our webpage, help them with all those different things, and try to help teach them the right way before Julie has to help them. So that was great, and again, we had another, I think we had about 125 families show up at Arboretum. So people are excited for 4K, they want to be part of it. Some other things I just want to highlight, so again, trying to get those monthly family nights, trying to get the 4K families just involved and feel part of the district. Being at the center, I've heard from others that, they don't feel they're part of the school, so that was one of my goals, is how do we get them to feel part of our district and feel all the great things of Waunakee. That orientation family meeting, another thing Mackenzie and I did is we had registration night at the Waunakee Neighborhood Committee last year and this year, and just really help with those families and make it a one-stop shop, so that needed translation, needed other services. That was great. We got their busing, just everything done, and I think that really helped the families. It got them placed, and we did that early, so again, they know where they're going. Trying to get those 4K teachers involved in some of the district PD again. If you talk to some of our 4K teachers, they don't feel part of the district, which they're not, I understand that, but they're still teaching our kids before we get them, and they're amazing teachers. They have great knowledge. So at the beginning of the year, they came to Randy's story, did some of that PD. So I've just really been trying to make them feel more included, and just give them some of those great PD opportunities that we're so fortunate that we have here. Another thing I've worked on is, again, that consulting process. When teachers are worried about behavior, special needs, speech, just getting that form out, getting to them right away, letting them know that we're here for them, getting into that classroom, which is probably the trickiest part, right? Trying to leave one building to go to another building, but giving them that support, giving them those ideas on how we can help make those 4Kers have the best experience possible and get some of those interventions started right away. Monthly 4K check-ins is something new, so we meet with the special ed teachers, our school psych and social worker every month, and we just talk about what are you seeing, what are we seeing. We do monthly visit rotations, so again, we're between Mackenzie, myself, and I, we try to hit one of the 4K sites every month, which can be tricky at times, but again, we want to be visual, we want to be seen, and we want people to feel supported out there. Again, that 4K end of the year celebration, this year we have a magician coming on top of Kona Ice, so it's going to be pretty great. We've been pushing that self-regulation in classrooms. Again, how can we help teach some of that stuff before they get to the elementary schools, and how do we give those supports to teachers? And then that Start Early Literacy Assessment, which I'm not sure where we're going with that. Another thing was doing digital placement, so I told you my job is to place everybody in their site and then notify them. So before we were doing it by mail, and I actually worked with Kyle, who's no longer with us, but Amy, and they helped me learn how to do it digitally, so it all goes out electronically, we can track it, and they get it faster. So it's kind of nice that everybody gets it at the same time. We're still doing monthly family newsletters, monthly staff newsletters. Meeting, that collaborative council is meeting with all the directors of each site. And then those ECHRS observations, which again are going on the whole month of April. Any questions on all that?
Each teacher one evaluation?
Each center, so each classroom,
center.
sorry. Yep, so like Inspire has 2 classrooms, they get each classroom, yes.
Great.
You've answered all my questions.
I'm not done yet. I'm almost there. All right, so just how do we move forward, right? So a big question is, how do we continue to support the 4K staff and the growing needs of our students with pretty limited district staffing? So there's 3 of us, we have 247 kids. Just, I think again, it's very important to be visible, to get those early interventions into the classroom, and to really support our staff. To go to Jack's question, how do we keep 4K teachers in the district, right? How do we provide 4K staff with that quality PD and resources that we know our K-12 staff are getting? Because they see it. And again, I know they're not our employee, but when they see all the great things, again, they're our foundation of all those great things because they're starting our kids off. And then just what does our program gonna look in the next 5 years? Lots of things are changing. And I don't know the answer to that, but that's a question that I continue to have with my staff. Just what does it look like? How can we continue to be better? How do we keep parents involved? And how do we make sure, right, that our 4Kers are doing even better things as they get to our elementary?
This is where I can ask questions.
Go for it.
I want to thank you. This is great. I think what you're doing to validate the 4K staff and make them feel part of the enterprise, because they really are. I mean, they are such an important, integral part to future success. So it's really a great story, and thank you.
Love your energy too, and getting families acclimated into the district and feeling connected. I mean, that's kind of our main goal. So we really appreciate all the creative ways that you're getting families connected and involved.
So where do you're working in the, with these teachers and programs and so forth, and you articulated changes coming. What are some of those changes, and what are you hearing?
And again, I don't know what changes are coming, right? Like full day, I know has always been on the horizon. Some schools are moving to in buildings. Some are hiring staff as district employees, but they're still out in the centers. There's been some different state things that were on the horizon and kind of fell off the horizon. I don't know. I just want to continue to make 4K, right? Like I said, a positive experience for our staff, our students, and I don't know what that looks like, but I want to continue to learn and grow the program. I've only been doing it for 2 years. Amy did a great job before that, so right, there's still more we can do. I just want to make sure, like I said, we're meeting all the needs of everybody in our families to get them ready to be part of our district.
Thank you.
Nothing, Ted?
Awesome.
Nothing. Sorry.
Thank you, Miranda.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much. Thank
All
you
right.
That's a
for
good
all you're
work.
doing.
Thank you.
And last but not least, a presentation on tips. Take it away, Steve.
Thank you, Joan. So, to begin with, just to share with you that the presentation that I put in the packet tonight, the intended audience was a couple of meetings at the Village of Waunakee. So I know there's some information in here that you already know, obviously, that Jack is the board rep. So this wasn't designed for the board, it was designed for the Village of Waunakee, but I wanted you to see the information that was shared. And then it's a timely discussion with, the discussion that's going on this Wednesday and then following Monday at the Village of Waunakee. So if you could go to the next slide, Rebecca. So I was just thanking the village leadership for giving me the opportunity to come in and talk about this topic with them. I was sharing with them that how it works at the school board level is that a representative is assigned to the joint review board. Jack is the representative. But one thing just for all board members, you can go back for just a minute, Rebecca, is a reminder that in the past, this topic was discussed a little more regularly at the school board level, and the school board had a position statement that was created on tax districts. That was because of the number of discussions and the amount of times that it was being discussed at the school board table. We worked together administration work with the board to create a position statement. The intent of that was to guide the decision-making process of the school board rep who was going to the joint review board meetings. So I did reference that link. So just be aware that that's still out there, although we haven't talked about this topic in a while. That board position statement is still current at this point in time, and we do reference that from time to time. All right, if you want to continue, Rebecca. So the main point of the presentation I was giving at the village level was just to talk about the intersection of how tax incremental districts work with the school financing system in Wisconsin. One of the confusing things regarding tax districts is we do hear from time to time from community members that are very concerned that the school district's budget is having a negative impact by tax districts. So we want to share with community members that that's not accurate. And so we want to kind of explain to them how the school finance system in Wisconsin works. Because we do hear a couple of things from community members saying that if a property is in a tax district, the school district's budget or what we're able to spend is negatively impacted. And on this slide, what I'm sharing is the fact that the school district's budget is driven by a state formula called the revenue limit. The revenue limit formula takes into account state equalization aid, property taxes, a 3-year average of enrollment, an inflationary increase approved by the state budget, but property values inside or outside of a tax district do not impact the revenue limit formula. So we do want to make sure community members know that even though we do appreciate them asking about the school district's budget and whether the school district is negatively impacted, the answer to that is there is no budgetary impact. So the school district's annual revenues are not impacted by whether or not a property is in a tax district or not. A school district's budget is impacted by the state's revenue limit formula and really what happens in the state budget. You want to go to the next slide, Rebecca? But there are components of the school finance system that are impacted by property, and the main one is state equalization aid. So it's important to acknowledge that while property values don't affect the revenue limit formula, they do impact the state equalization aid formula. So what we shared on this slide was information about the equalization aid formula from this past October, and shared with the village board where Waunakee School District currently sits in the aid formula, which is important to know. We happen to sit in a situation right now where if you see the term tertiary aid, that's the third tier of the state's aid formula, where we actually are negatively aided. So our district loses about $690,000 in state funding from this third tier. And basically what that means is our property value per student is slightly above the state average, meaning the state is pulling back some funds from our district because of the property values in our community. So it's important to just note where a school district is at in the aid formula. You want to go to the next slide, Rebecca? On this example, this was related to a discussion that was occurring last fall, where I showed the village board members what would happen if $8.4 million in property was added to the state aid formula. And so what you see is a difference of a negative $68,000. So that may seem contrary to what you might actually think happens when property is added. But in the state aid formula for Waunakee schools, when property is added, the state takes additional resources away from our district because we are viewed as slightly property wealthy. So it kind of sets the stage for just understanding what actually happens in our community. So as an example, if an $8.4 million property is added, you can see specifically what happens in the state aid formula, that those funds are then pulled back from that system. And what I shared also is the links to all of these different formulas, because people can go out there, download these spreadsheets and do the same analysis themselves. You can plug in what if a $20 million development was in a tax district or not in it, and you can see for yourself what it's actually doing. So it's important to just note that especially in the case of commercial property. Commercial property doesn't bring students with it. Students are a key component of the aid formula. When property values added to the district, commercial property without changing the student count, the state's pulling money out of the aid formula. But then on the next slide, you can see that where we are last fall with our tax rate. The district's tax rate was $8.97. You can see what the equalized value of the district was. And then if you apply the tax rate of $8.97 towards that 8.4 million, the hypothetical 8.4 million being added to the property rolls, you would see the taxes though would go up by $75,000 because the district would be able to tax that property. If you go to the next slide, you can compare the revenue limit, the state aid, and the property taxes really before and after a hypothetical $8.4 million is being added onto the tax rolls. And you can see in effect the difference is about $7,600 between those formulas. And what I wanted to get across on this slide is to make sure folks understand that beyond question, the most important variable to Wisconsin public schools is enrollment. Districts with increasing enrollment have benefited from the current system. Property value, especially the addition of property value from a commercial district, is really insignificant to the school financial system in Waunakee. When you see the impact of adding property, you know that the state is pulling money out of the aid formula. We're then able to tax that property, but the net result is basically insignificant. So the takeaway for the Waunakee School District when something is like a tax district is being evaluated is just to know that budget-wise, there's no impact. State aid-wise, we are going to lose funding from the state when commercial property is added. However, we'd be able to tax said property through the school district's property tax levy, and the difference between the two is almost close to zero. You can run the same analysis with larger dollar amounts, and it's going to be the same thing. The state reduction in revenues is just going to be larger, but it'll be offset by the property tax levy. So then we showed the enrollment history and talked a little bit on the next slide about what is the most significant factor to public school districts is enrollment, and how the revenue limit formula has a comparison of the 3-year average from the previous 3 years and then the 3-year average from the current 3 years, and that student enrollment growth is the primary driver of the Wisconsin school financial system. And we've shared with individuals before who have had concerns about it that it is just the current reality of school finances in Wisconsin is that student enrollment drives the formula. There certainly are community members who believe it shouldn't be that way, that the system should not be set up based on increases in student enrollment, but the current reality is that's the way the system is designed. And so we have communicated to the village and all municipal partners that development and growth in the community that results in an increase in student enrollment is essential to school districts in the current school financial system, and that the district has had a long-standing relationship with our municipal partners to really encourage growth over time. That has always been responsible, moderate growth has been the plan in the Waunakee community. But I think it's fair to state that the district continues to reiterate that responsible, moderate growth benefits the entire community, including the district. On Wednesday, Jack will be participating in a joint review board meeting, as well as it is on the agenda for the village board the following Monday. I don't know, Jack, did you have anything that you wanted to add about what's in front of the village currently that's being discussed?
Yeah, I guess when you look at the TIF district that they're looking at, they're actually extending the TIF district on the west side of Q, all the way up to Woodland. So basically it makes it a contiguous TIF district, business district, if you will. The benefit of that is there's a road that goes through the business district into the residential, which, I think would be positive, because then you've, on that property behind the schools that we've got out there, you've got two entrances to the property. Just from a safety standpoint and so forth, it just makes sense. The other thing that they're putting in there is a bike path on the south side of Woodland, which I think creates a safer environment for our kids, going to the school. So those are, a couple of things. And quite frankly, if they don't extend that TIF district, that bike path isn't going to happen. And I think what we're
Jack,
doing. Yeah.
what are you saying that based on?
I'm sorry?
I mean, wouldn't they still develop at that area and put in a bike path if the TIF isn't extended?
I'm not sure who would do that.
Why wouldn't they still do it?
Who's they?
The developer.
Why would they?
Because he owns the property and he's the developer.
He doesn't own the property in front of the residential house that's between that area and the school. He doesn't own that property.
So is the community putting it in? The village of Waunakee is putting it in?
Well, it would come out of the TIF district. From my understanding, the funding for that would come out of the TIF district as infrastructure improvement.
Any other questions?
Did that 8.4 hypothetical have some relation to the one we're looking at, or just pick 8.4 for the heck of it?
Yeah,
It seems like a weird.
Yeah, that was a weird number. It was on a report from a prior tax district, and it was under discussion last year, so I just grabbed it off one of the reports. So yes, definitely a weird number, kind of pulled out of the prior report.
No, I appreciate Steve. He's gone to a couple meetings now to present this, just to give the perspective as far as what this does for the school. And it's, as you can see, it's a complicated formula. It has a lot of different ins and outs to it, but he makes it as simple as you're able to understand it.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Steve. And that concludes our agenda. Do you have any announcements?
No.
So we are down to consent agenda. There are a number of things in there, a lot of field trips. I would like to mention the Kohler engine donation that Michelle McGlenn has kind of done some work with. And they are donating 12 engines to our small engine technology, and they are valued at $500 each. So that's a sizable donation from them.
Absolutely.
I want to thank them. So as you look through this, if you want to pull anything out, please do. If not, I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve as presented.
As presented, second. Any questions on anything? Don, any questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Perfect, thank you. And we have our board, those are things we've already said, right? Our board reorg.
Yep, board reorg. I think you just have Rebecca will provide the document for people to choose committees, which then will be the board president's job between the reorg and then the main meeting.
Tomorrow night, we have our evaluation meeting
Yep.
at 5:30.
See everybody again.
We get to see everybody
You said
again.
we don't have a reorg meeting set up?
Yeah, right,
We-
after the Quick stuff.
It's on the 29th.
Oh, yes, I got it. Yeah, thank you.
The one thing we do need action on is last month you talked about the board retreat this summer on July 17th at 5:30, but you didn't vote on it, and that's a special meeting, so I do need to vote on that.
Motion to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yep,
And I
otherwise,
did check with Hanukkah on that, and she's good on that date.
yep, otherwise, I think we have all of our other committees already scheduled, and we scheduled the, I think we're good.
Perfect. So motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh.